As we all know, the NBA draft is coming up pretty soon, and this draft is going to be one of the most interesting ones of all time. It's for many reasons. One, there's a lot of great players, but two, not every single player is going to turn out to be as great as they're anticipated to be. The NBA draft in general is easily one of the most interesting drafts of every sport. Football and baseball is cool, and the first and second rounds interesting, but after that, there's so many picks that nobody pays attention to. What separates the NBA is the fact that every pick counts. There's only 60 players that are even going to hear their name called. So throughout the entire draft, most fans are glued in because their team only gets 1 to 2 and maybe 3 picks. And then some teams only get 1 pick because they've traded their pick. So everybody's paying attention. You get the point. Every fan of every team's curious to see who the next star is going to be for their team. To combat that and make it even more entertaining, it's the most interesting because of this. You don't see too many busts in the first and second round of the NFL. Yes, it happens, but it happens more times than not in the NBA. Football's a really forgiving sport. If you have a bad first, second, or even a third year, you're gonna be okay because technically a 21 or 22-year-old in the NFL is really young. On the other hand though, a 22-year-old in the NBA is considered getting old. If you're not in the NBA by the age of 21 or 22, almost zero scouts look at you, unless you was a 4-year beast at college. And plus 2, in the NFL, there's 22 spots. In the NBA, only 5 players can play at a time. There's so many more opportunities in the NFL than there is the NBA. I think we can all agree on that. What I'm getting to and what I'm trying to say is, to be a bust in the NFL, you had to have some off-the-field problems or just get really bad really fast. But however, for the NBA though, it's a little different. I've seen it time after time, and we've seen stories of it where people don't even get drafted and they get to the NBA and they somewhat shine. In the NFL, it's rare to see a guy go undrafted to a star on the team, but in basketball, we've seen it happen before. We all love an underdog story, and in the NBA, there's a bunch of them, but there's more of a downside to the NBA. If you're not performing each and every night, you only got 1 to 2 years to prove yourself at the NBA, or else you're either going to the G League or going overseas. The NFL develops players a little more and slowly. The NBA, we have no patience. It's honestly kind of sad because 20, 30 years ago, people would draft players and give them 5 to 6 years. But now, you got 1 to 2, maybe 3 years at max. Hopefully I can find the article and I'll throw it up on the screen, but now people are saying that Miami Heat are scared of Tyler Herro's superstar potential and he's not developing fast enough. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think he's 22 yet. The fact that they're already somewhat fed up with him is mind-boggling. He had a great year in the bubble not too long ago. I'm not going to talk about the Tyler Herro situation too much. All I heard was that they're scared he already reached his potential. That's just one of the most brief examples of how it is in the NBA. With that being said, in the NBA, we see so many busts it's not even funny. Matter of fact, being a bust in the NBA is so normal that going into the draft and after the draft, people try to predict who the bust of the group's going to be. It's really fun to talk about that stuff because only in the NBA could a number 1, number 2, and number 3 overall pick be a bust. In every draft, I'd say there's 3 to 5 busts. It's not all bad though, because there's also 3 to 5 sleepers. In today's video though, we're going to be talking about the 3 biggest busts heading into the NBA draft. What's good, y'all? I hope you're having a blessed day. Just wanted to drop by and say, if y'all want to see a video of me talking about the 3 biggest sleepers going into the NBA draft, let's try to get this video to 1,200 likes. I never asked for likes, so hey, let's see if we can hit that. If we hit it, I'll drop a video. If not, it's all good. Now without further ado, let's get into this. First things first, before we even get into anything, I need to state this. The 3 players I'm going to talk about in this video being a bust is my opinion. I don't expect every single one of you to agree with me. I know that's not going to happen. But what I do expect is for you to hear me out and listen as to why I think they're going to be a bust. Let me make that a little more clear. I don't think these 3 players are going to be a bust. They will be a bust. Like always, I can't just say stuff and not back it up with facts. I have a lot of facts and I've done a lot of research on all 3 of these guys. Like I said, just be open-minded and listen to what I gotta say. Our first bust that we will be talking about is no other than Zaire Williams. Zaire Williams was nothing short of an absolute monster at the high school level. He was a 5-star recruit, could score whenever and however he wanted to, and could also lock you up on the defensive side of the ball. With him being listed at 6'8", he was a perfect NBA prospect, at least in high school. I'm not going to talk about how good he was at high school, just know he was a beast. The one knock on him going into college was his shooting ability, because people were scared of that and didn't know if he was going to progress. Can he hit shots? Yes, but he failed to prove that in college. One thing that really terrified and scared me was that he had a not so great freshman season. I do need to state this because I know some fans of him are going to try to mention this, but he did get hurt and was battling some injuries at Stanford. He still played most of the year, so I'm not going to give him an excuse for that. People are high on him for the obvious. He's 6'8", insanely athletic, and he can shoot here and there, but he's not consistent. For his freshman and only season at Stanford, 2020 through 2021, he only averaged 10.7 points per game. To go along with that, he pitched in roughly 4.6 rebounds and 2 assists. When you see those numbers, you're like, they're not too shabby. But he only shot 37% from the overall field. Shooting under 40% from the field is unacceptable. His 3-point percentage wasn't as crazy bad as you'd think it would be. He shot 29% from the 3-point line. I understand that 29% isn't good, but it's almost 30, and people consider 30 to be okay. I watched a lot of his games, and in most of the film, he looked comfortable shooting the 3-ball and he was confident, so that's what I look for in a good player. One thing to note too that nobody really mentioned was that he had a terrible turnover problem. He averaged 2.9 turnovers per game. To put that in perspective, he averaged 2.2 assists per game. Therefore, he was averaging more turnovers than assists, and that's a bad look. I think he has potential, but what scares me is that that's why people are high on him. It's only potential. They weren't high on him because of what he did at Stanford. Going into Stanford, people was projecting him to be a lottery pick, but now he's fell all the way to 24. Considering the season he had, him still being in the top 30 blows my mind. I'm really big on shooting because the NBA is really big on shooting, and if you can't shoot, you're not going to succeed. I don't care what any of you say. If you're under 7 foot and you can't shoot consistently, you're not going to be a star player or even an average player. On the flip side, let's talk about this because there is some good things to talk about with Zaire Williams. People are high on him because although he had a terrible season at Stanford, it was somewhat okay. And that's a good sign because he's nowhere near his potential, so that means he has room to grow and he can be a great player one day. It's not just his jump shot that scares me, it was his overall game. Like I said, he was reckless out there. I think what hurt him at the college level was that in high school he was 6'8" and running over kids, but in college he was playing grown men. I'm going to be quite honest, when he was even in high school, because you know I cover a lot of high school players, I never saw the hype in him anyways. In high school, most of his mixtapes are him dunking on people and driving to the rim, and that always scares me in a player. If players aren't shooting a lot, that tells you one thing. They're not very confident in their jump shot. He's in such a weird position too because he's too tall for a point guard and he doesn't handle it good enough to be a point guard, but he's also too short to be a power forward. So therefore, he'd either have to play shooting guard or small forward, and he does not shoot good enough to be a shooting guard. I do not see him succeeding in the NBA just because I don't see how he'd fit in with any team. He's one of those players that I've always had a strange and weird feeling about. Anyways, let's get into draft bust number 2. Draft bust number 2, and this is the most interesting one and maybe the most debatable one, we have no other than Scottie Barnes. Now hold on. I know what you're saying and you're about to type in the comment section. Matt, what are you talking about? Scottie had a great freshman season. Guess what? I would agree with you 100%. He had a fantastic freshman season. What makes this an interesting player is that nobody's talking about him, but scouts love him. He's had a very quiet and simple and successful path to get to the NBA. He's going to be in the NBA and he's going to be a first rounder. There's no doubt about it. He should be a first rounder, but people are projecting him to be a lottery pick. In the most recent mock draft, they have him going at number 7 overall. That's really high for Scottie, and here's why. In high school, he played his basketball at Montverde Academy in Florida, and they was one of the top teams in the country. For that team, he only averaged roughly 12 points per game, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. You do have to take into account that there's so many great players on that team, so nobody was averaging 25 points per game. He wound up signing with Florida State, and that's where he played his one and only season of college basketball at. The only, and I mean the only thing scouts wanted to see out of him at Florida State was him scoring the ball and him getting better at shooting. Out of every prospect in the draft outside of Cade Cunningham, he probably has the best player build. He's listed at 6'9", 225 pounds, and he can play anywhere from the power forward to the point guard position. I think he's a better version of Draymond Green. That's a perfect comparison. The reason everyone's so high on him, and I think they're too high, is because he's a freak athlete. You don't see too many kids that are 6'9", can jump out of the gym, pass the ball, rebound, and do everything. What I just said is the main reason as to why people got him going in the top 10. I can't say enough good things about Barnes, but here's why I think he has the potential to be a bust. The only, and I mean the only thing that terrifies me is the fact that he only averaged 10 points per game in college. In 24 games played, he did average 10 points per game, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds. Those are good stats, but they're not top 10 lottery pick stats. To put it more into perspective, there's guys that are projected to go undrafted and late in the second round that are averaging 25 points per game. One good stat that stuck out the most to me was that he shot over 50% from the field, which was nice to see. He can shoot the 3-ball, not consistent, but he can shoot it good enough to open up his overall game. In college, I wouldn't say he struggled shooting the 3-ball, but it wasn't a strong suit. He only shot 27.5% from deep, and in the NBA, he's gonna need to improve that. I understand why he's so high in the mock draft. It makes perfect sense, because he can be a better version of Draymond Green. And Draymond Green, I know some of you don't like him, but he's a good NBA player. However, with Scotty, he doesn't have that takeover and star player ability. He's not gonna go out there and give you 25 points per game. It's not going to happen. Now, he is going to be consistent and give you 12 to 15, but nothing more and nothing less. He's a good player and he has an overall solid and great game. But when you are selecting a player in the lottery and as a 7th overall pick, you're not looking for a good player. You're looking for a guy that could change the franchise one day. If you got a top 7 or 8 pick, you're hoping that guy one day could be an all-star. As good as Scotty is on defense and he can guard almost every position, on offense, I'm worried. We know he can pass, we know he can rebound, but can he go give us a bucket and average 20, 22 points per game? I don't see that happening at the NBA level. I think he's going to be a great role player, but nothing more and nothing less. If some of you disagree, let me throw this out at you. Cam Thomas, who was a point guard for LSU, has entered the draft and he averaged 25 points per game. And he's not even projected to get drafted until late first round or second round. You also have players like Luka Garza, who averaged 24 points per game and is projected to go in the second round. On the other hand, you have Scotty Barnes, who's projected to go 7th overall, and he only averaged 10 points per game. Points are not everything, but when you're drafting a player that high, you need a guy that can produce. One thing to note that is an upside to him is that he did get ACC Player of the Year, but college is much different than the NBA. His entire life, he's always been bigger, stronger than his competition, and even in college, he was bigger and stronger than everyone that guarded him. When you get to the NBA though, you're not going to be bigger and stronger than any of those guys. He's not a point guard, he's most definitely not a shooting guard, and he's not a center. Therefore, there's only 2 spots where he could play, either small forward or power forward. If you don't want to take my word for it, listen to this. In a bunch of write-ups and mock drafts about him, people have even said that they're worried about his scoring ability. It's not the 1990s or 2000s. You're not going to change a game on the defensive side of the ball. You got to be able to shoot and score. I really like this player and I'm wishing him the best of luck, and I hope he proves me wrong, but I think 7's a little too high. He seems like a great and humble dude, but like I've said over and over, I don't think he scores and he doesn't have a great offensive game right now for the NBA. One thing's for sure though, keep your eye on him because it's going to be interesting to see how his NBA career plays out. Let's get into our final and third player of the video, draft bust number 3. I feel like this one's going to be the most debatable one. Our third draft bust we will be talking about is no other than Corey Kisper, who was one of the best players for Gonzaga. In the recent mock draft, they have Corey Kisper going in the lottery at number 11 to the New Orleans Pelicans. I've never seen the hype with this guy and I've never understood it. He's been at Gonzaga for not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 seasons. So already he's either 22 or 23 years old. I'm not going to look it up because that's what he is. In his first season, he averaged 6.7 points per game. In his second year, he averaged 8 points per game. In his third season, he bumped it up to 14. And in his final season, on the one he just had, he averaged 18.6 points per game, which is impressive. And for the entire 2020 through 21 season, he averaged 18.6 points per game, 5 rebounds, 1.8 assists, and shot over 52% from the field, which is efficient, and I love that. He also shot a miraculous 44% from the 3-point line, which is even mind-boggling to think about. That's almost 1 for 2. But, I have a but. With all that good stuff being said, we gotta talk about something serious. I'm not a hater. Those aren't good stats. Those are great and maybe even phenomenal stats. Let's be a realist though. Look who you're playing. You're playing elementary schools and freaking Chattanooga Aquarium. Like, he didn't do it against real legit competition. And I already know what some of you are about to say. Matt, they played 7 or 8 big D1 programs at the beginning of the year. And yes, they did. But for the majority of the season, they were playing cupcakes. I'm not going to take away the fact that he had a great season, but look who he was doing it against. That's all I'm going to say. You can do what you want with that information. In March Madness, when they needed him the most, he only averaged roughly 13 to 14 points per game. I know what some of you are saying. Yo Matt, averaging 14 points per game, that's good. And yes, it is. But not for a guy who's projected to be a lottery pick. If you think I'm wrong, listen to this. The guy from UCLA that goes by the name of Johnny Juzang was averaging like 26 to 27 points per game, and they don't even have him projected to get drafted. So you're telling me this guy, Corey Kisper, is supposed to be a lottery pick, and he only averaged 13 points per game or 14 points per game in the NCAA tournament, and Johnny Juzang averaged almost 25, and he's not even going to get drafted? That makes no sense. I'm focusing on March Madness because that's when you're playing the best of the best competition. Who can shine and who can thrive against the top teams and in the top moments. When you're selecting a guy in the lottery, that is big time and serious. You're supposed to be selecting a franchise caliber player. Am I saying a guy that's going to change the franchise? No, but a guy that you think could maybe one day be an all-star. And keep this into account too. Corey Kisper has been playing at the NCAA level for 4 years now. He should be dominating. He's either 23 or he's almost 23 years old. So Kisper is a 23-year-old man playing against 18-year-olds. Yeah, he should be putting up solid numbers. He's a good shooter and he's going to be a good spot-up shooter in the NBA, but nothing more than that. He's athletic, I'll give him that, but he's not an athletic freak. He doesn't even really have good defense. If you have a point guard on him, he's going to blow right past him. And one of the mock drafts was doing a report on him, and they said maybe at best he can have a role similar to JJ Redick. Let me ask you guys a question. What's his potential? I feel like he's already reached it and he's not that great. Anyways, continuing on with this video, let me ask you guys a question. What do you see Corey Kisper even becoming one day? Like, what's his peak? At best, his highest ceiling is Kyle Korver, and that's it. That's his ceiling. I don't even think he's going to be near that good. I know what some of you are thinking. He's a lights out shooter, so that should help him and elevate his game. I will say this, and I don't even need to say it. If you leave him open and you don't put a hand up, he's going to make the shot. He's that good. But here's the thing. In the NBA, you're not going to get many wide open shots. Corey Kisper's not going to create his shot. He can't go one-on-one and create an isolation situation. Isolation situation. That was kind of a tongue twister. Let's be real with ourselves. Who do you see Corey Kisper taking one-on-one off the bounce? That's what I thought. Absolutely nobody. I would compare him to a McDonald's Luka Doncic. All he can do is shoot, and he's not very athletic. There's a reason he didn't have a good March Madness, because all you gotta do is guard him, and he can't do nothing. If you just want a shooter, this is your guy though, and he'd be a great late second round pick, but not a first round lottery pick. That's insane. No way if I was an NBA scout or GM, I'd waste a lottery pick on Corey Kisper. He's not taking nobody off the bounce, he can't make crazy shots, and you need to do that in the modern day of the NBA. I don't really care about the defensive side of the ball because I think he's going to be fine. He's 6'7", so even though he is a little slow, he can catch up to people and block them from behind. If somebody takes him in the lottery, you're making a big mistake. That's all I'm going to say. Now with all that being said about those 3 players, I do want to say this. I have a lot of respect and it's all love for all 3 of these guys. Every single player we talked about in this video, they all seem like great dudes on and off the court. And that's a key part too. You got to be good off the court because you can't be causing a lot of problems. And I'm wishing them the best of luck. But at the end of the day, this is nothing personal. This is a basketball take. This has nothing to do with their character. I can like you as a person, but if you are cheeks at basketball, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to let you know. These guys aren't cheeks at basketball. They're great at what they do. I just think they're a little overhyped and they're going to be a bust. Let me know in the comment section what you think down below. And if y'all want to see a part 2 or another video talking about bust or sleepers, 1,200 likes. But with all that being said, that's gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. If you're new to that channel, what are you doing? We're on the road to 5 million, baby. And as always, let's be great. I'm out, y'all. Peace.